This is Holy Week, this run up to Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. But it's a week which, as I said, started yesterday with Palm Sunday, the day we remember Jesus entering Jerusalem on a donkey. His way of showing that he'd come not as a warrior kind of king on a horseback or a chariot or anything, but as a humble king on a little donkey here to serve others. And the ride into the city on a very small colt, a small foal, as if you were here yesterday, we were talking about in our service here. That was a real sign of that humility of Jesus as well. So that Palm Sunday procession, which we can see on the screens there, indeed all of Jesus's actions and teachings, it meant, I think, from the word go, that people realized that there was something different about Jesus. Mark's gospel puts it like this difference. He said he taught them as one having authority. And this word authority, I think, is an important one because it points to the fact that when Jesus spoke, people listened. People listened. What he said carried weight, should we say, with them. And so when Jesus, for example, rides into town on a donkey as a different kind of king, or when the next day, on this day, when he goes into the temple and overturns all the tables of the money changers because they were excluding and getting in the way of ordinary people being able to worship God. Well, the fact that people listened to Jesus and flocked to him like the shepherd he is, the fact that people wanted to follow him, well, this was becoming a real problem for those who thought that they should have had people listening to them, that they should have been in charge. People, we might say, like the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders of the temple. They felt threatened because of Jesus' ever-growing popularity and this authority he had. And so just a couple of days after Palm Sunday, these local leaders decide to challenge Jesus about his authority. And we're going to see how Jesus responds to that challenge with our Bible reading for today, which is taken from Mark's Gospel, and it's from chapter 11. Have a listen to this.
They arrived again in Jerusalem, and while Jesus was walking in the temple courts, chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders came to him. "By what authority are you doing these things?" they asked. "And who gave you authority to do this?" Jesus replied, "I will ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I am doing these things. John's baptism, was it from heaven or of human origin? Tell me." They discussed it among themselves and said, "If we say, 'From heaven,' he will ask, 'Then why didn't you believe him?' But if we say, 'Of human origin,' they feared the people, for everyone held that John really was a prophet. So they answered Jesus, 'We don't know.'" Jesus said, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things."
So they ask him, by what authority are you doing these things, Jesus? In other words, why are people listening to you and not us? What gives you the right to do and say the things that you're doing and saying? And as we heard, Jesus very cleverly, he turns the tables on them by asking them where John the Baptist's authority came from. Now they decide, as we saw, not to answer Jesus, because if they say John had no authority, the hostile crowd would turn against them even further because they held John in such high esteem. But if they say John's authority came from God, their reputation would be shot even further because they haven't been following his teachings. And so Jesus calls their bluff, almost saying, well, if you're not going to answer me, neither will I answer you. And eventually they slink away for another day. But I guess the question of where Jesus' authority comes from still remains. Why did people listen to Jesus? Why did people follow him? And it seems perhaps the real answer is quite simple in a way, because Jesus' deeds backed up his words. He had real integrity. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Jesus had authority because his life had credibility. Credibility which came from living a consistently sinless, perfectly loving life. The kind of life, in fact, that you'd hope, maybe even expect God himself to live on earth among us. And what gives Jesus' life the utmost credibility is what we'll be remembering and giving thanks for this week, that he put his words of love for us into the ultimate act of love for us, being willing to die in order that the power of death and darkness might be defeated once and for all. Indeed, as we'll celebrate on Easter Sunday in a few days' time, Jesus' resurrection, his rising to new life, demonstrates his authority over life itself. Eternal life, which Jesus offers to each of us, a gift which begins in this world and because of Jesus continues into the next. That's the kind of authority Jesus has, authority over life and death itself. No wonder you and I perhaps, no wonder billions of people throughout history and around the world to this day feel drawn to follow Jesus because of his life, his death, and his resurrection. They demonstrate that Jesus' authority comes from God because he is God himself, the God of life, the God of love, and the God of resurrection. And so as that big truth, perhaps, sinks in hopefully ever deeper this week as we contemplate all that Jesus has done for us, I think my prayer for us this morning and my prayer for us this week as we journey through this Holy Week in our own way is that we might experience afresh the security, the wonder, and the love that comes from knowing that we follow Jesus himself, this same guy, this same God, the one who is the conqueror of death and the Lord of life. And so in this most important of weeks, may that truth inspire us to live this life to the full with him, both now and always.